And I'm just going to share my screen. So my name is Brooklyn. I'm the Vice President of SWE. And I worked with some other people who will introduce themselves right now. You guys want to just unmute?
Hi, I'm Olivia Brown.
Hi, I'm Emily Sturgeon.
I'm Tessa Lytle.
I'm Marcella Larrabee.
And we're just going to be going through professors and faculty today and talking about women in STEM. Oh, there we go.
Do you want me to do an intro of myself here?
Someone was just going to introduce you really quick and then
turn
it over to you. Sorry.
Yeah, so first we're going to be hearing from Professor Coburn from the Biomedical Engineering Department, and I'll just let you introduce yourself and speak a little bit.
All right, thank you. I wasn't sure what the format would be. So yeah, hi everyone. I'm Professor Coburn. As said, I'm in the Biomedical Engineering Department here at WPI. I've been here since 2016, so I am in my 5th year. I guess I'll give you a little bit of kind of background. So I did my undergraduate degree in chemical engineering at UMass Amherst, and Professor Roberts, who will be introducing herself shortly, was my professor, mentor, etc. at UMass. So it's pretty cool to be now colleagues with a lot of people that I did research with. I also did research with Professor Binns while I was an undergrad. So I did the RU program. It was the first bioengineering RU program at WPI, and I was part of that program, which is pretty cool, I think. And then I went on and I received my PhD in chemical engineering at Johns Hopkins. But in both my undergraduate research and my PhD research, I did biomedical engineering kind of research in materials for drug delivery and tissue engineering. So I sort of bridge between chemical engineering and biomedical. For academic careers, one of the kind of rules of thumb nowadays is that you continue on and get more research experience. So I did a postdoc at Tufts University after receiving my PhD. And now I am at WPI and I do biomaterials research for tissue engineering, tissue regeneration, and drug delivery.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop the share for a second and open it up for questions if anyone has questions for Professor Coburn. If not, I could go. Would you want to talk a little bit more about your experience as the first RAU in that field? That's really cool that you got to do something like that.
Yeah, so clarify just so that it's clear. So I was in the first REU program. So for those who don't know what the abbreviation stands for, research experience for undergrads, sorry. So I was in the first bioengineering REU at WPI. So I was like their inaugural year, and they've had it pretty much almost every year since. They get renewed every 3 years. So there's like gaps here and there, and I'm working on getting the renewal as the PI for it now. So kind of coming full circle there. And the PI when I started was Terry Camasano, so female, so nice, lots of female role models along the way. But being in the RU program was great because I got to perform research at an institution that wasn't the one I was getting my degree at. So I got to explore what research is like elsewhere. Prior to that, I worked with Sarita Bhatia at UMass doing research in her lab, biomaterials, drug delivery. There's a really common theme since I was a wee youngin' doing research. So it gave me the opportunity to check out research at other institutions, as well as learn about what people are doing elsewhere, different researchers, network, obtain more mentors outside. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Professor Coburn before we move on? We'll come back at the end and we can ask questions to everyone, but cool. Okay, we're gonna share again.
All right, our next speaker is Professor Layla Abulail from the Chemical Engineering Department, and I will hand it over to her to introduce herself.
Thank you. So like, do I have between 5 to 10 minutes? Oh. Can I share screen?
Juliana, do you mind giving permission to share? I don't think I can.
Nice to see you, everyone. And yeah, good stuff, Janine.
You will be able to now.
Okay, can I? Oh, it seems like I can now. No, what I'm sharing. Do you see the PowerPoint? No?
No.
Okay, now?
Yep, there you go.
Okay, I need to minimize this. So I prepared like few slides here. So I'm originally from Nazareth, and that's like in the Middle East, Palestine. It's famous for the Church of Annunciation, where Mary like became like with the gift that she's gonna have the Son of God. And my parents immigrated from that place into Jordan. So I was born in Jordan, born and raised in Jordan. Jordan has like an area that is like 3 times area of Mass. So it's not a big country. So as a family, I come from a family that has 5 sisters and 1 brother. My father was an Arabic teacher, and he's my #1 teacher and my #1 believer. And he gave me such a confidence that set me for life, really. My mom was a math teacher. My husband is mechanic. My brother is a math teacher. So the sisters are 5 engineers. We have 2 chemical, 1 biomedical, 1 structural, and 1 environmental. So some pictures of my family. So I'm a middle child, and with that, I became an excellent moderator, good between conflicts, patient, social person. And as a kid, I had to babysit my younger siblings, do a lot of housework. Then living in that home, we had to do lots of sharings. The 5 sisters, we shared 1 room. And my brother has another room. We got so much support and encouragement from my family. Persistent education was so important. So as you can see, like we all continued in our fields, and still we did so much like entertainment and playing together. We were a middle income family, and so we're living month by month. My father, he never owned a car. He made sure, just like him and my mom, that all went to our education. So like pretty much all teachers around the world, this is not a very big job. So I wanted like a career that can pay more and something that I like. So that's where I chose engineering. And I was, of course, affected by my older siblings because they did engineering as well. I did my undergrad in a public university in Jordan, Jordan University of Science and Technology. So I was the 4th in the family to enter that same university. And I did my undergrad in civil engineering with a focus on environmental. I was the first of my class. And since then, like I'm a perfectionist, try to reach high and stay there. And that's not an easy. And I can imagine these were the best 4 years in my school career. So please enjoy your undergraduate. It's like the best years. Lots of hands-on experience, solving problems. I was a good student, participated in all lectures, discussion, doing all my work on time. However, I had really lots of friends that I still have for life. Then just a little bit before finishing my undergrad, I came for an internship in WPI. And that was in 2002. And since then, I'm still in WPI. Love WPI. So I came for an internship with Professor Camasano. And then since that time, I went back, finished my undergrad, and then came back directly after my undergraduate to finish my master's degree in environmental engineering, where I worked with Professor Terry Camasano in the bioenvironmental research area. My experience there is different than my PhD. I worked within a big team. I learned from them. We shared experiences. I published a paper in environmental science and technology. And that's when I started my small family. As you see in this picture, that was in my baby shower. And I got pregnant with my first child, who's 15 now, Omar. Then I moved to PhD. I did it in another area, water treatment, with Professor John Bergendahl, again at WPI. And that experience was really different because I was the only and main student. So everything I learned from scratch. So that was a different experience, that being in a bigger team. I had to learn many techniques on my own. So my family also was growing. So I always had to balance that family and school. So I had my second child 15 days before I defended my PhD degree. And after that, as an international person, you have to keep looking for jobs and things that you like. So I went, Professor Camasano is a big friend, big mentor to me. I went back into the lab of Professor Camasano. We did another work on cranberry juice and bacteria, published a nice paper from that work. It was a short time, like 6 months. Then I started part-time teaching in chemical engineering, and that's where I started my career in teaching from like 2011. And Professor DiBiasio was the department head who gave me that job at that time. And since then, I really enjoy being in that department. At that same time, I had my last child, the third one here, Amir, who's 7 years old. Finally, after that, I became a full-time assistant teaching professor in 2017. And that was after I talked with Professor Roberts, who's another great mentor and friend to me. She taught me to be advocate for myself. And she was the one who hired me in 2017. So I'm a joint faculty member between chemical engineering and environmental engineering. And I worked on myself. I tried to attend many workshops to improve as a teacher. And I really enjoyed the interactions with the students and the impact we can have on students, as well as really interactions with my colleagues. So really many things works for me along the way. Having the good genes, working hard, being persistent, finding that balance between family and work, being motivated, energetic, kindness and support from people around you, and having good mentors. Being a mom motivates me a lot. And some of the stuff that I really enjoy on my personal time, baking, love coffee. And here's my mom, and she's really my biggest support throughout the year. I love having her around. She helps a lot. And yeah, that's all. I'm ready to take some questions. Let me stop the share.
That was awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that. Anyone have any questions? Don't be shy. I guess I can ask one. So at the end, you had quite a long list of things that were working in your favor. Is there something that you think was super crucial to all of your success? Maybe like the 2 or 3 most important things?
Like something that is super crucial. I don't like to give up. I keep working hard. I just like have to do it. No other option. However, like along the way, like there are so many struggles, there's ups and downs, but really support is another thing that I like to share things. I like to take advice from people around me, and then I come up to my opinion. However, like really having support from mentors, friends, family is something I do like, and then take all that and then come up with my opinion. But hard work and just persistent and do not give up.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If nobody else has any questions at this time, I'm just going to go ahead and share again.
So next we're going to hear from Professor Conrad from the business department.
Hi, so my name is Professor Conrad, and maybe you're wondering why all my degrees are in industrial engineering, and I teach in the industrial engineering program. And so I guess I'll start with some background about me. I was born and raised in Canada. I came from a family of teachers, and my grandmother actually had a PhD in the 1950s, but she never worked because her English wasn't strong enough, so she couldn't get a job. Then my mom went on. She had a master's in physics, but she was really discouraged from working because she had a family, and not from my dad. My dad was supportive, but the industry wasn't supportive. But I did go on to get a PhD and work, so I guess I'm lucky in that sense. I decided to go into industrial engineering because it is the application of applied math, primarily in business and in organizations. And before I went to graduate school, I worked for a number of years in a number of industries. So I worked actually in the grocery industry. So I was in distribution centers a lot, which was very male dominated. I worked in banking, which again, very male dominated industries. After I came to the United States for my PhD, and after I got my PhD, I came to WPI, and it's been great. I've been here for 11 years. I have 3 children, and all of those children were born while I was on the tenure clock. So people in academia tell you that's a very stressful time. And I think I was the first person to request 3 what's called a tenure clock stoppage at WPI for the 3 children. I think my career, what I've been lucky in my career is finding mentorship groups, such as Women in Engineering. When I was a PhD student at Purdue, I was very involved with their Women in Engineering program. I have become very involved in my professional organization. So there's it's called INFORMS, Institute for Operations Research and Management Science, which is the type of math I do. But they have I don't know the numbers, but it's something like 15% of the membership out of the 12,000 is female. But they have a mentorship group, and I've become really, really involved in that. And that has really been instrumental, I think, in my career in finding a support group and finding someone to speak to, and someone outside of my organization, maybe that I don't work with directly or that isn't at WPI, and just having that sounding board. And that has been an incredible supportive network, because both my mother and my grandmother have passed away, and they're kind of my number one champs. And then my research is, again, it's maybe not a traditional application of when you think of STEM or industrial engineering for that matter, but I use applied math to look at issues surrounding kind of social problems. So I work in the area of human trafficking, like labor exploitation, sexual trafficking, and vulnerable populations such as homeless and runaway youth. That's about me. I'm happy to take questions.
Does anybody have any questions? I think that it's kind of unique. A lot of people, oh, somebody did ask one. Can you talk more about your research in depth and any of the findings that you found from that research?
Sure. So I have a number of projects, and actually I should preface this with, for a number of years I looked at, applying industrial engineering techniques to healthcare operations, and then I switched into looking at vulnerable populations. And when you consider working with vulnerable populations, there's kind of a spectrum of areas you can help. One is prevention. One is kind of protecting and interdicting, and then one is, kind of the follow-up care. And I've worked across the spectrum. So some projects I work with is trying to identify people who are at risk of being trafficked and intervening beforehand. And I use something called operations research. Maybe some of you have heard of optimization models to look at how to distribute funds so that they're most effective in preventing trafficking. So I've worked with some organizations in Nepal. I actually right now have a project not really related to trafficking, but looking at the asylum seekers on the US border between US and Mexico. With the homeless youth in New York City, one project I'm working with there is trying to determine how many there are, what kinds of services they need. And it sounds, just even determining how many there are, it's a hidden population, so you need a lot of statistical techniques to figure this out. And once I can estimate how many there are, what type of services they want and need, how much does New York City need to provide for them? I've worked on projects such as where is the best place to locate a shelter for survivors of human trafficking. The United States has about 700 beds for survivors of human trafficking, and there's tens of thousands that are estimated that need them. So there's no way the supply can meet the demand. And I used a combination of some data science, some analytics to look at, again, the United States has a budget. Where does it make sense to locate a shelter? And the way this problem is modeled, there was over 2 million different possibilities, and which one is the best one for a number of factors. Yes, those are just some examples of projects I've worked on, but I'm happy to discuss more at some other time.
Do you want to talk about maybe what you found the locations to be, like the optimal locations for those shelters?
Yeah, so it depends on what the decision maker deems the most important. So I always present different scenarios to decision makers. So if the cheapest, if you want the cheapest option, here's the states you could. Actually, I could probably dig up some figures, and share my screen in a minute. But here's where you should locate. If you have a budget of $2 million and you want the cheapest, here's where you should locate. If you're most concerned with, we modeled kind of the impact on a person's health by receiving rehabilitative services. This is so. I guess I'm not answering the question, but depending on what the decision maker thought was important, we could present scenarios to him or her. So if health was the most important, here's where you should locate to receive the biggest return on your investment. If just cost is most important, here's where you should locate. If meeting the greatest number of, like the greatest volume, here's where you should locate. So there wasn't a single answer.
That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone else have any questions before we move on? And if you want to share any figures or anything like that, you can just
Sure.
let us know.
Oh,
We can.
I can dig some up.
Perfect. All right, so we can skip to the next one and come back to if that's okay.
Our next panelist is the Chemical Engineering Department Head, Susan Roberts.
Hey everyone, happy to be here today. Can I share my screen? Yep, I can. All right. I will tell you a little bit about my journey. Thanks for the introduction, and I am a professor and head of chemical engineering here at WPI. It's actually come full circle. So I'll tell you a little bit about my kind of where I started, where I get my roots from, and where I'm at today. So I think about who am I? So I thought of all these different roles that I play. My parents mean the world to me. I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a department head and a professor. I'm a puppy owner. I'm a mother of 3. I do research. I love mentoring students and faculty. I have an amazing circle of friends, and I love Disney and traveling. So I can't wait till COVID is under control and we're all vaccinated. I actually went to WPI for my undergraduate institution. And so I'm a first gen college student. So I was raised in a very middle class family in a town not too far from here, Billerica, Mass, by a really strong mother. She was an administrator at Raytheon, never went to college, but so brilliant. And my father had ended up with 2 girls, and he just, he taught us everything. And to this day, the 2 of them are my absolute rocks. And so neither one of them went to college. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I went to WPI. I thought I might want to be a doctor because I thought that might be cool. But then I really started taking engineering classes and different classes in biology and the life sciences and biomedical engineering. And so I decided I was going to, think about things beyond becoming a doctor. And so I took advantage of a lot of opportunities when I was an undergraduate student. So I was involved in a lot of the organizations that I'm sure many of you are involved in. I was one of the first students to be selected to be a tutor in the MASH tutoring program. I did my IQP at UMass Medical School. It was one of the finalists that year. It was about reducing patient anxiety during MRI exams. And I got really inspired to think about research by a talk that an MIT professor, chemical engineer, Bob Langer gave in the old Salisbury Hall auditorium. And he was talking about his work in creating artificial tissues and drug delivery. And so similar to the areas that Professor Coburn works in. And I was just beyond inspired. So I decided I wanted to go to graduate school. I loved tutoring and teaching, and I started to find my passion for research. And so I decided to go to Cornell University, and the picture on the right here is my the house that I lived in for all the years I was at Cornell. It's actually on the National Register of Historic Places. But the snow there, that's pretty much what it looks like all year round, except for maybe the heart of the summer months. And so before I went to Cornell, I was fortunate to work in industry for a couple of summers. And I worked at a company called Genetics Institute, which was in Andover, Mass. And it was bought out eventually by Wyeth. And I was able to work on the process for synthesizing polymer particles that were used to deliver a bone morphogenic protein drug that allows bone growth and stimulates bone growth in defects. And I was able to do an incredibly amount of work while I was there. And I really learned independence. My very first boss, I would come to him with questions. I was kind of a perfectionist, and he would just look at me and say, go away, figure it out. So he really taught me to think on my own. I stayed, 12, 14 hours a day because it was so exciting, the work I was doing. And all of us, we were all young in this dynamic environment. Working together, and I just really, really enjoyed it. So that really prepared me well to start graduate school. And so when I went to graduate school, I received some fellowships, so I was able to kind of pursue my own line of research. I led the TA development training program in the College of Engineering. And so I learned a lot about teaching, problem solving, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I was able to mentor undergraduate students in research. I really was exposed to a number of people from all over the world. And this internationally diverse group of people that I worked with and interacted with at Cornell shaped me in so many different ways. I feel like I became a different person in learning about all the different cultures of the world and different backgrounds. I had a lot of struggles. Getting PhD is not easy, so lots of ups and downs. I actually had to deal with sabotage in the lab. We had a saboteur. But the key thing I did was I found a lot of female and male mentors when I was at graduate school. My PhD advisor is a male, and he's just an incredible role model and advocate for women. The woman I show at the top right here, her name is Donna Gibson, and she was a PhD scientist on my thesis committee. And so she really mentored me, and I got a lot of great advice from her. I took my first faculty position at UMass Amherst back in 1998. And I was actually the first female faculty member hired, tenured, and promoted in chemical engineering there. In fact, I was only one of 3 full professors in the College of Engineering at UMass out of 100 plus total faculty. So still in engineering today, there are not a lot of female professors that kind of make it up to that full professor level. I was also the first faculty member doing life sciences research hired in chemical engineering. So that kind of made me very unique in a lot of ways. Sarita Bhatia, who Professor Coburn mentioned as one of her research mentors, is actually one of my best friends. She's what I call a near peer mentor. We were both hired around the same time. And when she joined the faculty, we kind of were in it together as the 2 women faculty in the department. I became the Associate Dean of the Graduate School, and I was the founding Associate Dean of the Graduate School at UMass. So I got to learn a lot about how universities function and how graduate programs function outside of engineering. I was the founding member of the STEM Diversity Institute, and I also ran an REU program there, research experience for undergraduates, for about 9 years, either as co-director or director. And then I came back to WPI in 2015. So coming up on my, completing my 6th year here this summer. I became head of engineering, chemical engineering at WPI when the position opened. I wasn't necessarily anticipating moving, but I applied for it, came and got it. It seemed like a great fit, and I've been really happy since I've been here. Interestingly, I'm only the 2nd female department head in engineering ever at WPI. So it's been, despite the fact that we're a STEM institution and fairly progressive in terms of diversity with respect to women, I'm still only the 2nd female department head in engineering. And I'm the only female department head in engineering my entire tenure here. And so it's me and a bunch of men. I do bioengineering research at Gateway Park, and I have one slide on that. I'll tell you a little bit about my research. It will not be anywhere near as impressive as Renata's work, which I was blown away with. That was incredible, but hopefully you'll find it interesting. I'm actively involved in a lot of women's activities, both on and off campus, and I love being here. I love the small, engaged community, the fact that there are a lot of mentors, both male and women, the fact that people really care about each other, faculty and students, and I really appreciate the diversity of the WPI community. And so briefly, my work is in plant natural products. And so I try to understand how plants produce products that can be used as treatments in human health. So plants produce a variety of these very interesting, unique bioactive compounds that are used in nature as part of their defense system, but that are useful for us as the treatments for disease. And in fact, many plants have a lot of anti-cancer activities, and about 75% of the current prescription drugs in the US for cancer treatment are plant-derived. And the World Health Organization estimates that about 80% of the world uses these plant-based therapies for the treatment of cancer. So it's really important to understand what compounds are synthesized by these plants, what natural products have activity, how can we synthesize these natural products at scale? And the compound that I use, I'll go here, and I study a lot, is this compound called Taxol. And that's an anti-cancer agent that has been approved by the FDA for the treatment of breast, ovarian, and lung cancers and the age-related Kaposi sarcoma. It's used in the coating of heart stents, and it's also shown to have some activity against neurological disorders. So the idea of my work is thinking about how can we supply a lot of this drug for the people that need it. And so in the case of a lot of plant systems, you can't just harvest the drug naturally. And in the case of paclitaxel, the drug I work with, it takes 3 100-year-old trees to generate enough paclitaxel for the treatment of one patient. So when they discovered this fabulous drug, they cut down all the trees and then they ran out of the supply. So natural harvest just isn't going to cut it. You can think about maybe synthesizing in the laboratory from its elements, but the process for the synthesis of paclitaxel is very inefficient. And it's a very sophisticated, complex molecule. So there's over 40 reactions involved, lots of harsh, environmentally unfriendly solvents, and you get very low yield. So it's not really feasible at scale to synthesize paclitaxel chemically. Originally, the supply of paclitaxel was through the isolation of a precursor from the needles of the yew tree. You can see at that top right graph. Top right figure. Take the needles, get this precursor, and perform steps in the lab. But again, lots of harsh solvents and the availability of the precursor was in question. You can't take these genes that produce the enzymes that produce paclitaxel and put them in a microbe. So we use a technique called plant cell culture, where we actually take part of the plant and we cultivate it in the lab. We put it under, certain conditions and hormones and nutrients and sugars, and it allows cells to grow. And then eventually you can scale it up into these larger scale bioreactors that I show here. And these cells in these bioreactors will produce the compound of interest. You can purify it and then use it for mass supply. And in fact, the process that I work with was the first FDA-approved plant cell process ever in the United States to produce a pharmaceutical. And so a lot of our work goes into trying to understand this process and understand how these cells produce molecules like paclitaxel. And I am going to stop sharing and come back. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for sharing. That was incredible. You're quite the trailblazer.
Thank you, Brooklyn.
We have a question here. Did you face any hardships relating to being a woman in a leadership position? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Yes, I faced a lot of hardships. Never mind being in a leadership position, but at all levels of my, not at WPI, I was an undergraduate, ironically, but couple examples, as at Cornell, there was only a few women in my entering class. And I was sitting with a bunch of guys one day, and they all were making comments on how we only got into Cornell because we were women. And so I've had to deal with questions like that. When I was at UMass Amherst, I had very supportive early years there, but then the leadership in my department had changed, and a lot of the men were not supportive of me being the first woman being tenured and being promoted. And so I actually faced a lot of backlash. There are stories I could tell that could last for years. I probably should write a book, but I actually had to go through some university processes to make sure that I was able to get promoted as I deserved. So lots of hardships there. And then coming here to WPI, actually, I haven't had many hardships in my leadership position here. I have to say, you get more confidence as you get older too, and you don't put up with a lot of stuff. And so I kind of just wouldn't put up with the things I used to put up with. And I have much better comebacks nowadays. But WPI, one of the reasons why I came here is because Lori Leshin was our president. And the men that were in leadership were also super supportive. And so like the dean, who's kind of my direct boss, his name is John McNeil, and he's wonderful. And the provost, Rolly Sobieo, used to be my dean. I helped hire him. So I have to say the people here have been super supportive, but there's been lots of challenges along the way. Oh, and then I see a thing about the sabotage. Yeah, I can tell you this. I mean, another passion of mine is scientific and engineering ethics and really being honest. And I tell my kids this every day. I don't care what you do. Don't lie to me. If you lie to me, I'm not gonna trust you. And I believe in the lab, you really need to be ethical and think about the work that you're doing, how you're reporting it. And so there was this guy in the lab, and I myself wasn't sabotaged, which was really lucky, but there was about 15 of us PhD students in the lab, and he decided there's about half of the people he didn't like very well, so he wanted to sabotage them. So what he did was he had a virus that he would inject into the cell cultures. And this made it so the cell cultures did not function the way they should. Okay, we were all doing work in cell culture. And so some people did, and no one knew what was happening. Some people didn't have experiments work for like 2 years during their PhD. And it caused so much angst that students dropped out of the lab, they dropped out of their PhD program. And eventually there was a really smart student in the lab, his name was Kenny. I remember he took some samples and he tracked down the virus and figured out who was doing it. So I learned a lot about craziness and about how to deal with things like that in the lab. But it really made me think. My stuff was not sabotage, so I was really fortunate. I don't know. I guess he didn't target me for whatever reason, but it was a really unfortunate situation.
He knew better than to mess with Professor Roberts.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. At the time, maybe. I certainly would have handled it differently now than back then. I was definitely afraid. But yeah, he was, yeah. Well, ironically, not that karma comes around, but he did pass away at a young age due to cancer. And on that positive note, I'm happy to answer any more questions you have too.
All right, last call for questions before we move to our last panelist. Nobody? Okay. Oh.
So our last panelist is going to be Professor Gouler, who can hear you.
Hello. I know it's difficult to pronounce my name, but it is edited Ulkuhan. I'm an assistant professor of EC department, electrical and computer engineering. By the way, Susan and Laila, I really like your presentation and family photos, like all the story that you told. Sorry, yours, I didn't know about the format. So, but I have some pictures from my lab page, not Facebook, that I can show to you. I can start with a brief professional intro because we are more familiar with it. So yeah, I joined WPI in 2018, August. And before that, I was at Georgia Tech. I was doing my postdoc. And before that, I was in Turkey and Japan. And before Japan, I was in Turkey. So I've been in 3 different continents for my education. Actually, yeah, I can tell a funny story here. So Istanbul sits on both continents. I was living in Asian part and my university was in European part. So I was traveling every day between Asia and Europe. It was fun, very nice view of Bosporus. Yeah, anyways, I can speak 4 languages, including Japanese, but I cannot read and I cannot write. It's difficult to learn the alphabet. I tried actually when I was in Japan because I stayed there 5 years. I had some progress. I could learn till 300, sometimes 4, and then it fall back. Sometimes it went to 500, and now I guess I know around like 10 or 20. So yeah, let me share my screen so that I can show you a few photos. I'm gonna get this one. Can you all see? Yeah, we were talking about being women in STEM, right? See, this is my dad. I tried hard to find a female student, but it is getting more difficult. And this is not just only the situation at WPI. I'm going to show you, you know, an effort that we are trying to make it happen. So this picture is from Women in Circuits Committee from a flagship conference, and these ladies are all from, you know, all around from the world, from Europe, from Far Asia, from North America, South America, and everywhere. So the attending number, I don't remember the number, but the percentage of women to this conference was around 2%. And with this committee, actually, we are trying to increase the girls who are interested in electronics or specifically in circuit design, integrated circuit design. So a lot of efforts are going on. We are organizing mentoring events or like rising stars kind of workshops. And this is also from another Women in Circuit event that we prepared at MIT. I guess, again, this is before COVID, so it should be 2019 summer. As the management here at WPI, supportive of women, faculty, and also students, I think the same effort is going on at MIT, because as far as I heard, Chandra Kasan is the Dean of Engineering, and in that presentation, actually, at that day, he said that I guess almost half of the engineering department heads are now women. So it's really amazing to hear this kind of achievements. And by the way, I just heard this year, like the long history of WPI's electrical engineering. There has been like just 2 female faculty promoted to tenure with tenure. So it puts a little bit, you know, pressure on me. But I know our dean, John McNeil, and department head, Rick Brown, they are all very supportive. So I'm very happy that I came to WPI at this age. Maybe this is because of Lori's, our president's efforts. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about our research, but before that, I also wanted to show this one. These are my undergraduate students from 2019, since we have the photo and everything. This team actually, as an undergraduate team, they won the 3rd place award at MIT's Undergraduate Technology and Research Conference. So it happened during my first year and increased all my motivation and, you know, believe in supporting undergraduate students. So I think I'm gonna stop sharing this page, but I have a presentation actually, which I present today about the research stuff. So I'm going to quickly show what we are doing at my lab. So we work with miniaturized biomedical devices. We call them like next generation biomedical devices. We are trying to make them miniaturized, smart, and connected. And we are trying to measure physiological parameters from human body. To support this research, we are also interested in the field of wireless power transfer or RF energy harvesting, just, you know, untether these devices, because like any wearable devices, or like if you think implantable device, there is no choice of having wires. If you think about the comfort and feasibility. And another research area that I am interested in is security of these biomedical devices, because we have like this Apple Watch, Fitbit, and then we're gonna have this maybe smart patch on us if doctors needed to monitor our health continuously and remotely in the future, coming soon, these kind of things. So then all these devices will have our private information, right? Health data. So we have to secure all these devices as well. And there is a few, work presented in this field at the moment, because it is very challenging. We have less resources, we have small area, less power. It just barely makes the chip work, Yeah, saying cheap, actually, we all do this work by using the advancements in the field of integrated circuits and systems. And one application that we are very interested in, monitoring physiological parameters of infants. Like most of you, I am sure you are aware of heart rate, respiration rates, heart rate variability, or blood oxygen saturation monitoring. These are like becoming very common nowadays, but what are, the upper part of the list here in the slide is less common, and actually we are putting most of our efforts on these things. And I'm just gonna show you, this is one of the products. We are trying to imitate Apple voice. This device actually measures our oxygen values, like from the molecules that are diffusing through our skin. And we have just recently proved that we can also measure carbon dioxide. So these are known as blood gases, important health parameters. I guess this much is enough. We have, more stuff. But if you are interested in, I can tell it later. Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I know I'm curious about your experience living in 3 different countries, or 3 different continents even, and doing your education there, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. It was very fun, like all different countries, like really think about, let me put it in this way. If Turkey is in the middle, Japan is on the, left side, very far, east side, and then America, like I guess when I was in Turkey, my travels to Japan took like 11 or 13 hours, and this is the same from Boston to Istanbul, like 11 to 12 hours. So like totally different, I would say 3 cultures. That's why I really love talking about cultural stuff, or how to say, relations, or religions, that kind of things. I really love talking differences and commonalities between cultures, including food. I really like Far East food as well. So yeah, I have a lot of friends. Still, I am in touch. I guess I had like around 12 or 15 Japanese friends who traveled from Japan to Turkey just for my wedding. And it was very nice to have all this connection continuing to this day. And I visited Japan actually in 2019. Maybe you saw my photo with my previous professor. It is very interesting because like it was a really long time ago, like maybe 15 years ago. And I don't have so many people here that I can practice my Japanese. It was like, movie Matrix when I just land to that country, I started to use the vocabulary that I haven't used maybe for 10 years, 15 years, and I was shocked. how you know how that happened? Like it was very interesting. Yeah.
That's so cool that you got to have all those experiences. That's really awesome. So if anyone else has questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. If not, as this is a women's history event, we have some then and now facts that we're going to share with you all to wrap us up, and then we can open it up for questions. Emily, take it away.
Sure, thank you. So our first fact would be the number of women faculty. So before in 1937, our first woman in faculty was Emily Haynes, and she was a librarian for WPI. And then currently, today, out of 498 faculty members, there are 225 or 45.1% of faculty that are women. And so next fact would be the number of women professors. So our first woman professor was Betty Hopkins. She was the first female tenure track professor at WPI in 1972. And then currently nowadays there are 181 full-time women professors at WPI. And of course, our first female president, before Lori Leshin, there was only, well, 0 female presidents. So Lori Leshin is our first woman president at WPI.
Awesome, thank you. So while everyone's here, I just want to say thank you to Juliana for organizing all of this. It couldn't have been possible without her, and she's worked so hard on this event. So I really got a lot out of it, and I hope everybody else did too. And yeah, tomorrow we'll hear from President Leshin. So that'll be really great. It will kind of tie the themes from the last few days together. So I hope everyone can join us for that. And I'm going to stop sharing. If anyone has to jump off, other commitments at 6, that's totally fine. But there's one final question for the panelists, which is, what is one piece of advice that you would leave with the students in STEM that are here today? And we can just go around in order of who presented, if that's okay with everyone.
Don't have much, but believe in yourself and just do whatever to achieve your dreams, and do not let people who wants to let you down win. So you always have to stand for yourself, and yeah, look for positive people who can support you. But yeah, count on yourself and believe in yourself.
Actually, that's exactly what I was going to say, is to keep believing yourself, because so many times you might doubt yourself or not be sure. And I think it's especially difficult as a female in a largely male-dominated field is to doubt yourself or question things you're doing, but just believe in yourself.
I totally agree with that too. I mean, I guess a few last minute pieces of advice. One is know your worth. And I think a lot of women don't know what their worth is, like in negotiating salary or negotiating anything. So you know your worth. I mean, like if you're a woman in engineering, you know, you're worth for who you are, but you're also worth because you're a woman and you bring this diversity of perspective. So know your worth and learn how to negotiate. And if you ever need help with that, let me know, or go to mentors that you have, because I think it's really important. Also find male advocates too. I tend to hang out with a lot of women because I really like, I connect more with women. So I have a lot of female mentors and female mentees, but if you can find a few male mentors and I use the word advocate purposefully, because that is someone that will talk positively about you when you're not in the room. So someone who's going to be promoting you. You want to find people. And then lastly, don't be afraid of like pursuing a very, an engineering or STEM-based career. You know, almost everyone I think talking tonight has children. We have families, we balance things. And so you can do that. And so don't be afraid of doing things like that. And both are important. You can integrate them. Like I see Renata's adorable child's been sitting with us for a while, and I'm surprised none of my kids popped in here. None of Layla's kids popped in. They always do. But you can do it all, and the world is changing. And so whatever your goals are in life, you can do that within the confines of a STEM career. And just best of luck to everyone.
All this great advice. I can maybe just only add this. Don't hesitate to ask questions, okay? So if you are not sure about doing something, like if you don't know how to do, or if you don't know how to approach, or anything, just go find the right person and ask questions. Don't hesitate it, and it will change a lot of things. You will see this. And perseverance is important. Just keep up the great work.
All great advice, and I'm sure everyone that's here will take that with them. That was great. So I just want to say thank you again to the panelists for speaking and coming to share your work with us today. That was really incredible. Lots to think about after this is over. And this will be posted on YouTube. The recording will be, if anyone wants to look back at it later. So I think that's it. Thanks again. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to come to this.
Thank you.
This was a lot of fun. Best of luck to everyone in their careers.
Thank
Great to see some of my colleagues today too.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Really great.
Thank you. That was great.
Happy it was good.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.